Welcome to my video for difference of squares. Difference of squares is the first polynomial that we're going to learn how to factor completely. And we're going to be excited when we see difference of squares because difference of squares is the easiest thing to factor. It's not going to get any easier than this. We just have to make sure that we understand the steps that are involved in factoring difference of squares. The first thing we need to be able to do is recognize difference of squares. So there's two things that we need in difference of squares. The first is that there need to be two terms, and both these terms need to be squares. Squares can come in different forms. We might have a numeral squared, like 16, which equals 4 times 4. It could be x squared, which equals x times x, or we could have a more complicated term or monomial such as 64 y to the 8th, which is 8y to the 4th times 8y to the 4th. All of these are different squares. The second condition is there must be a minus sign between the two terms. That's where the difference comes in. Remember, difference is another word for subtraction. Next, we need to know the formula for difference of squares. If I have a squared minus b squared, that's equal to a plus b times a minus b. And we can prove that that's true by doing the multiplication a plus b times a minus b. And we learned how to do that in the last unit. We could use FOIL or we could use an area model. So here I've set up an area model with a plus b times a plus negative b, which is the same as a minus b. A times a gives me a squared. A times negative b is negative ab. B times a is ab, and b times negative b is negative b squared. And now notice that I have a minus ab and a plus ab, which are going to cancel each other out when I add them together. That means my total area is a squared minus b squared, just as the formula said. So here are some steps. The first thing you need to do is factor out common factors. Some difference of squares problems might be disguised as not difference of squares until you get rid of the common factors. The second step is to apply the formula that we just saw for the difference of squares. So let's do an example. I have x squared minus 16. I need to see if there are any common factors between x squared and 16. The only thing that goes into both x squared and minus 16 is 1, so no common factors to factor out. Next, I need to identify, is this even difference of squares? Well, x squared is obviously a square because it's x times x. 16 is also a square, it's 4 times 4. So yes, I have difference of squares here, which means I can apply my difference of squares formula for x plus 4 times x minus 4. And I can check to see that my answer is correct by again doing the multiplication and seeing if I get the binomial that I started with. So here's x plus 4, x plus minus 4, x times x is x squared, x times minus 4 is minus 4x, 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times minus 4 is negative 16. Minus 4x and plus 4x are going to cancel each other out, and I'm left with x squared minus 16, which means I factored correctly. So my final factored form is x plus 4 times x minus 4. Here's another example. I have 3x squared minus 27. On the surface, this doesn't look like a difference of squares question because 3x squared is not a perfect square. However, I can factor out the common factor of 3. So this becomes x squared minus 9. X squared minus 9 is definitely a difference of squares. X squared is x times x, and 9 is 3 times 3. I can apply my difference of squares to get x minus 3 times x plus 3. Now you'll notice I haven't forgotten about the 3 that I factored out, and that's going to be multiplying in the beginning. So my final answer is 3 times x minus 3 times x plus 3. One final example, I have 16y to the 4th minus x squared. X squared is obviously a square, it's x times x. 16y to the 4th is a little bit more complicated, but I know that 16 is 4 times 4, and I know that y to the 4th is y squared times y squared, so 16y to the 4th is 4y squared times 4y squared. That means I can apply difference of squares to get 4y squared plus x times 4y squared minus x. And that would be my completely factored form. The end. I hope this video helped you understand difference of squares a little bit better.